כולם מדברים עברית?
כן.
אוקיי, כולם מדברים עברית?
רובם.
It took you 100 years to speak Hebrew.
כן, אבל הרוב...
Can we start?
אפשר בלי מיקרופון, אני שומעים אתכם טוב.
לא, אבל אני בכל זאת הייתי רוצה מיקרופון כדי שישמעו אותי עוד יותר טוב. מה עושים?
בואי תנסי לדבר בלי מיקרופון, ישמעו.
Okay. She's got a microphone on there. No, she's got one on there.
בזה אני שומעת מעולה. בזה אני שומעת...
Okay.
איזה באיזה?
לא צריך... No, I think she hears on there.
בזה את שומעת מעולה?
רגע.
לא, זלדה מחוברת עם...
אני הבנתי, אני מחובר למצלמה?
אתם שניכם, אני שומעת אתכם כפול פשוט במיקרופון הזה.
Okay.
אוקיי.
רגע, את שומעת את שניהם דרך הנקמה?
נכון, נכון.
I've got an next thing.
טוב.
I have to sit very close to you then. לחבר על ידך.
Okay, can we start?
Oh, we don't need that. It's too much.
Shut up. He's got a shock that I told you to shut up.
He's like another son.
I said shut up and he said,
You can say what he likes to me. He has stood
But
by
she
me
didn't.
with everything I ever did. He's my son's best friend, and wow. And another one here, also my son's best friend. Another one, 3.
הבמאית, הצלמת. אפשר להתחיל? אוקיי, אנחנו מתחילים פה. זלדה האריס, number 5. Number 5 out of 100. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 100 years for the aliyah of the British congregation to Israel, to the land, to Palestine, to the land of the living, Israel. 100 שנה להצהרת בלפור, 100 שנה, אנחנו כבר 100 שנה גם אחרי מלחמת העולם הראשונה.
שנייה.
הראשונה. I told you to shut up. זה הייתה מלחמה, נגמרה המלחמה ב-1917. And if you think you're going to correct in Iraqi, let me tell you, you won't be able to. You try to correct in Iraqi, the British try to correct in Iraqi by putting borders in one line, a straight line. We don't have one straight line in Iraq. So don't correct me, please. Okay. So it's the Aliyah 100. That's what it is. And we're here to interview the lady, Zelda Harris. Zelda Harris, 100 years, my God.
I'm nearly 100 years old.
Exactly, that's what I'm asking. You see, I was very careful with you. How is it to be nearly 100 years from the Balfour Declaration?
It's scary.
Scary.
I didn't think I'd be this old.
You're not.
I didn't think I'd live so long.
Well, there you are. And you are number 5 on the chart of the 100 British people that made a point of their life. I mean, look, it's Alice Shalvey and it's David Horowitz and it's so many people, so many Ephraim Halevi and so many good people around you, and you are the 5th person on earth to be the one that tells people what to do for the sake of Israel. What is it that makes you tick?
I think that's why I got it, because I've been telling people what to do for the last 40 years.
Why do you need it? Why do you have this urge of doing things for all kinds of things, for אנשים שאכפת להם, the Israelis that have to just take care of Israel and to do this and to do that, and on every Hafgana and every demonstration and I get you every day and everybody gets you every day to tell you something is going wrong here and something is going wrong there. What makes you run?
I don't know. I can't say what makes me run. I say that I have the pragmatism and the drive, maybe from my mother, who was the opposite to me.
What was her name?
Rini.
Really?
Rini, Rachel, Ken. But my mother was pragmatic. And she said, when you get up every day, you just get on with life. And whatever bad things happen, you have to just carry on. And a lot of bad things happened to her and to me. My father died when I was very young, and it was just two of us.
How old were you?
14.
Goodness.
And my mother always said, don't be envious of people, and if you can do something good for people, do it, and if not, not, but don't ever be envious of other people. So that's how I grew up. And then there was a war. England was at war, so for 4 years we were moved around, and I always knew I was a little Jewish girl. So I arrived in the houses of people who were not Jewish.
You were at the Blitz in
Yeah,
London?
we were sent away. And
Whereabouts?
I was in Maida Vale, near Marble Arch. We were very heavily bombed, and every night my mother used to send me to an underground in King's Cross, which was quite a long way away, but my auntie lived there. And the underground was under a factory called Comoys, and Comoys was a pipe factory in King's Cross, in the Angel, and it had the deepest air raid shelter in London. So she used to send me off with my cousins, and we all went down to this air raid shelter. Anyway, we survived that war, and then we had the rockets, and we lived in London, so we all got the rockets from France. And we survived all that. And when that finished, that hadn't finished quite, but when I was 13, it was the first time I lived in a neighborhood where there were Jews, because I was always evacuated to non-Jewish people outside of London. And so I didn't really know much about any Jewish activities. I knew I was a Jewish girl, that's all. And I used to say to my host, I need candles on Friday night, and I don't eat pork. But apart from that, that was it. So when I was 13, there was a very big rally, and I love to tell this story because I feel emotional. It was an epiphany. It was advertised that there was going to be a rally of young Zionists, and I didn't really know what that was, and it was Hashoma Hatzair. And I didn't know that was such a left-wing organization, Hashoma Hatzair. And I arrived in the hall, which was at a very big hotel in London, and there were about 1,000 young people dancing the Hora and singing. And on the wall it said, "We are going to Eretz Israel." And outside, even during the war, the graffiti was written, "Jews go back to Palestine." And at 13 years old, I can see myself going into that room, and I thought, never, and who were the 1,000 people? Half of them, or more, were German and Austrian refugees who'd escaped. Because at that time in the war, 1943, there were still groups that could get certificates or whatever, and the young people got out and never saw their parents again. And I said to myself, if there's going to be an Israel, I'm going there. Never again is this going to happen to my people. And I didn't come from that kind of background, Zionist or religious.
And the year that you make Aliyah?
Well, it wasn't actually Aliyah. You know my husband, Leon. He left the British Army when he was 18, 19, and he said, I'm going to Israel. The war had just started in Israel, Milchemet HaShichrur, and he, of all the Jewish boys, in Golders Green, where we lived, the whole crowd of us, he was the only one that did it. And then when he got to Israel, he wrote to me, and he said to me, you've got to come. And this was nearly a year after he left. He went through Paris, Marseille, he was on the boat.
You were married already?
No, we were just girl and boyfriend. I was 17. And he said, you must come. And I said to my mother, who was the most wonderful woman in the world and never said no to me, said to me, if you want to go, go. And I arrived there, I won't go into the whole story about what it was like when I met him.
What were his prospects?
No prospects. He came to fight.
Could you make a living coming to Israel?
We didn't make a living. All we did was lose money here. But he
there was this guy that said that every day I wake up, I lose 300 shekel. Every day I lose 300 shekel. Every day. So they said to him, how do you make a living? He said, well, I have got one day that I don't work. I rely on that day.
Well,
that's the way you think.
They used to say, if you had a big fortune, take it to Israel and then you'll have a small fortune. So, but we didn't have any money at all. And the whole story, maybe it's too long to tell about what happened to us in the beginning. But he was the one who came. I came after him. We decided to get married. And after 2 months in Israel, we went back. And our parents didn't know. My mother didn't know, and his mother. And they met us. We went by boat with all kinds of other volunteers who'd come with machal to serve in the Israeli army. and they were all on the boats going back to Canada and America and wherever, and we were going to England. And they met us at
Machal is
Mitnadvei
Chutz
Chutz Laaretz, people who came to volunteer in Israel during the War of Independence. And the two mothers met us at the airport, not at the airport, we came off a boat, a train, and they said, oh, good that you made up your mind to come back. And we said, we have to be married in 6 weeks. And they said, what? It was after the war. Nobody got married in less than a year and a half to 2. You had an engagement, had to be kosher. Didn't happen, but we did. And we made it. And we got the wedding. We had the wedding because we needed money to go into something in Israel that we were starting a fishing cooperative with other people. And we didn't have any money. So we got wedding presents. The day after the wedding, I took my father had died when I was 14, so I took my bouquet and put it on his grave. And 2 days after that, Leon left, my husband, and he went to Holland because they were building a trawling boat, a fishing boat, because there was no food. And he was part of this group. And that's why we needed 1,000 sterling, which is a lot of money in those days. And we got 1,000 sterling as wedding presents. So he went off to Holland to supervise the boat. And I went back to Israel, to Haifa,
That's a lot of money,
to find a room. Yeah, but it was a trawler. There were 7 partners, and the other partner of 50% was the Van Leer Foundation. It was in Haifa. Anyway, to just cut through all that, the boat thing didn't work, and then I got very sick, and I nearly died, and I was saved by 2 South African amazing surgeons, and we had no money to pay the doctors, and nobody will understand what amazing days they were, because everyone was so together, and everyone was so helpful. It was a completely different Israel. It was just amazing. Anyway, so we went back. And then a few years later, we came back with Peter and with Anthony and went to live on a moshav shetufi, which is a communal moshav, like a kibbutz, Habonim. And then after that, we left and went to Beit Yanai, where we lived with not millionaires like today. They were just ordinary people and very, very close to us. And that was it. And then after that, we went through another period of very, very hard times. And we went back to England. And once back in England, Peter and Anthony were teenagers. They went to the Jewish Free School. And Mickey was a baby, went to a nursery. And I went and joined the movement to get the Jews out of the Soviet Union. So that's when I really started my activism.
Did you ever make a living, or you volunteered?
I worked all the way through, and in England, my husband got very sick, and we realized that my husband would never be able to work for anybody else again, so that we would have to have a living from a business which I could help run with him, and when he was well, he would be there, but if he wasn't well, it would still carry on. And we opened a bed and breakfast hotel in London, and everyone stayed there, and some of the multi-millionaires in this country stayed there because it was clean and it was safe, and it was in King's Cross, which is not a salubrious area, very, very questionable area with prostitutes and drunks, and you say King's Cross, oh, King's Cross. Somebody once said to me, I suppose you were running a brothel then. I said, no, not quite. Anyway, so the boys grew... You would have
made more living.
So the boys grew... Yeah, I'd have gone to prison also. The boys grew up with the love of Israel. They came back every year. And then one by one, Pete came first to the army. And then Anthony came with Jackie, his wife, to the army to get married. Got married in the army. And Mickey came to school. Mickey's son is standing over there, and he's now an Israeli too.
Let's talk about your volunteering.
Israel.
Thing.
What happened after that? Yeah.
I really do ask you, did you ever make any living?
No, not out of volunteering.
You never
No, not out of volunteering. The 35 was nothing. That we had our hotel, and that's what we did. And I went on demonstrations, and my husband came out of a hospital, and he went on demonstrations, and we made a good living, which brought us back to Israel. My whole motivation was to get back to Israel.
Of the volunteering the volunteering
so
actions.
it started with Soviet Jewry, and soon,
What did you do then? What
soon
was
we're
your-
going to talk
what was
about
your
Soviet Jewry.
task?
Well, I just joined the women. We were out on the very first demonstration. Somebody called from the Israeli embassy who was anonymous, wasn't allowed to give his name, who became eventually the mayor of Beersheba. He was a
Nativ.
fantastic man called Iju Raga. You know Iju Raga? He was mayor of Beersheba. What a guy. Anyway, and he came
You
to
say
this
his name
group
in
of
such a
women.
way that I don't know him.
Oh, you don't
It's
know?
Raga.
He was
Yitzhak Raga.
Raga. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Oh, what a guy.
איז'ו זה רומני,
Yeah.
יצחק זה ישראלי, רגר זה...
Really was Yitzchak.
Yitzhak
Okay.
Raga.
Anyway, and he came to London and he was looking for people to do something for Soviet Jewry. And he phoned one of the women that I was very close to, and she said, what do you want? And he said, I want 4 women to do a hunger strike outside the Soviet consulate in London. So she said, okay, I'll see what I can do. She phoned one of my friends, Sylvia Wallace, who you know. Sylvia Wallace phoned me, and I said, hunger strike, I'm going to do it. And Leon said, you can't do a hunger strike. I said, let's go see. So the 3 of us met. They were Shomrei Shabbat. They kept Shabbat. We didn't. We drove over there. We sat down. And with the husbands together, we planned a demonstration where we were going to sit in a car outside and fast all night. But we turned it into a bigger thing. And we decided that as the woman that had disappeared, who they wanted us to demonstrate for, was Ra'iza Palatnik, and she was 35 years old, we would get 35-year-old women to come and stand and demonstrate. So when Shabbat went out, we started phoning the press. We by then had some really good women who joined us. One was wife of a member of parliament, one was the head of WITSO or something, important women. And 35 women, we didn't know what to wear, so we decided on black because everyone would wear the same. And on Sunday morning, 35-year-old women sat outside the Soviet embassy.
Give me another scene of your volunteering.
Okay, that was that. No, but what I wanted to say was that we then slept the night on the streets. And that had never been done before in England, so that made the headlines. Okay, next thing was we came back to Israel in 1978, and I met Chaim Herzog, who had just come back from the United Nations. And I wanted him to do something for this guy who was my refusenik, whose sister is sitting over there in Moscow.
Let me just show it to the camera. Okay.
And his name was Volodya Preston. And his grandfather wrote the Hebrew-Russian dictionary, the only one, his grandfather, Felix Shapiro. Anyway, so I phoned Herzog's office, and I had actually met him once. I was invited to meet him at a dinner of somebody who knew him, whatever. And I said, do you think Mr. Herzog would see me because I would like to ask him something, and I do know him through, and he immediately said yes. So I went up to his office, and I'd been an idol of mine. When he came to England, every time he spoke, I used to go, and everything he wrote, I used to cut out. And here I'm sitting opposite this guy, and he's just come back from America, from the United Nations, where, he tore up their famous, And I said to him, I've come to you about this refusenik, and I wonder if you can help. And he immediately said, well, maybe, I started thinking. And then I said to him, I saw that yesterday in the Jerusalem Post, you wrote an article, and you said Israel is like a bleeding wound because there was a yerida, when a lot of people left. It was soon after the Mapach, when Begin came in, and a lot of people left Israel, mostly to go to America. And Herzog was terribly upset, because Herzog, as English he was, as Irish as he was, he adored this country. He just loved this country. And he said to me, this is heartbreaking. And one of the reasons they're leaving is because the system doesn't represent them. There's no representation. And
what did you do?
So he said to me, let's try and get people into an organization to change the electoral system. And I said, Chaim, but I just come back. And he said, so have I just come back? So what?
And you started Shinui.
We started Shinui Shtat HaBechirot. It was called the Ezrachim She'echpat Lehem. The Committee of
And
Concerned
until
Citizens.
these days, they didn't change a thing.
No,
We're
but
still governments of coalition. That is the first step to, as we call it in Hebrew, shchitut. Coalition is some kind of a shchitut in a way.
Absolutely.
Because it's a shchitut politic, because it's all interests. It's out of interests. Minorities lead us.
Absolutely.
And today
Absolutely.
we're facing one group of 4 to 6 members of parliament that is telling us what to do on Saturday or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're leading the government.
Yeah.
They're leading the government. So what did you do? What do you
Well,
feel?
I feel we were very let down. I tell
You
you,
must feel terribly frustrated after all those years.
very, because I tell you who let us down. You want me to mention names or not?
Why not?
Well, one of them was Reichman. Reichman was looking to write a constitution. He still is. I mean, this is 30 years later. Uriel Reichman, who was one of the leaders. Uriel Lin, who was unbelievable. Professor Libai, all kinds of people like that who were involved with us, who actually stopped working after the direct election of a prime minister, of which Bibi was involved in, and became elected. They all went to do something else. Reichman went to Herzliya. They just dropped it.
They were all for the new system, for
Regional proportional representation.
So why didn't it happen?
Because they dropped it. We
Why?
had a across the board committee from right to left who wanted to change the electoral system to make it where's Yaron? The person who would be elected would be representing you, and you could contact them and you would know that there's someone in there that cares about you. We don't have that here. Nobody actually represents you or me, even if he's your best friend. And I have best friends in the Knesset. It doesn't mean that they do anything when we have something going, because if they don't get something out of it, they're not going to help you.
So now there is no system that is trying this new way at all.
Nobody. And we didn't start
Everybody
it.
gave up.
No, Gad Jacobi started this before Herzog came.
Give me the next
Thing I did.
The next thing you did.
Okay.
So
So
we can
while
see-
we were still actually doing that,
We're showing that you can live with all the frustrations
without
in
earning
Israel
much money.
and still live well.
No, the money I earned in England was what saved us. That's all I can tell you. Anyway, so then I did get a job. And unfortunately, my boss, Jane Biran, who you know, is not here to tell us the story, but Linda is here because Linda was my right hand, and Yigal was my kind of semi-boss here in Israel to make sure I didn't go off the beaten track. And then I did actually get a salary. Okay, I was a paid director of BIPAC. It was called Britain-Israel Public Affairs. And so then I had a prestige only that I was a paid person, but I had the job of my life. It was the job of my life. It was to show foreign journalists, mostly English, and VIPs, lords and all kinds of people, Israel.
So you have met a lot of them.
Yeah, and exactly why do I want you
I
here?
had to represent Israel, the funny Iraqis that look Ashkenazi,
Oh,
those Iraqis
yeah, but-
that speak Yiddish. And
what
all
about the
this-
theatre journalists that came? Everybody.
Okay. Now, what is the final, I mean, today, these days?
So
what do you do?
the last thing I did was the road safety, which also helped me.
of course.
And you helped
Of
me,
course, of course.
and your son,
What was the
Gori,
name of the-
helped
what
us.
was the name?
Metuna.
Metuna,
That was
right.
the organization for road safety, and it's Nurit here. The others have left, right? Who else is here from road safety? There, my lovely, lovely Rootmans over there. And their son became the leader of our youth. He was very
We came
badly
to
injured.
see you in
He-
in a conference.
You came to
Yam
us in Yam HaMelech. That
Right.
was after Anthony died. My son Anthony died. And you did a wonderful thing there. You did Misapre Sipurim, a storytelling session. We had the hotel in the Daniel or Meridian or whatever it was called of David Fatal, who gave us the hotel because he said, if you want to do anything in your son's name, I'm giving you whatever you want. And he gave us the hotel for 200 people. We had this massive conference. We brought experts from Britain, which I'm going to tell the British ambassador, we brought experts from they brought. And you ran this wonderful session of storytelling.
When did you stop that job?
That job stopped because money ran out and because Leon got very, very ill. And because the girl who became my mankalit, who should be here today, decided that she didn't have the passion for it. And the fundraising was very, very hard. And I couldn't do it, my husband was too sick. So at that point, we moved here as well from Netanya. And I decided that I couldn't do anymore.
You see, younger people than you are frustrated from all kinds of things happening these days, and we look around. We're after 100 years as we started our talk, 100 years after the declaration of Balfour Declaration, and a lot of happenings in the last 100 years. But lately we are looking around and thinking, what shall we do next to save this country? We're really in a bad way. We need people like you to restart all over. How do we do it? What do you do?
Well, it's a moot question for me, because you know what I do politically, and because I don't want anyone in the room to want to get into an argument or a discussion. But I believe until that we settle, we make an agreement with the Palestinians who live on the same land and share the same land as we do, we're just not going to go forward. Because we have high tech, and we have Nobel Prize winners, and we're still looked at as the cleverest, brainiest, innovative people in the world. And look what we're doing to ourselves, because people are hurting here. They're hurting inside the country economically because of not of what Bibi is doing, which is making rich people richer, and those of us who have a few shares are earning a bit of interest, but the others are paying for it, and we're all paying for it. As a pensioner, I know that we're really paying through the nose for everything, and this is a tragedy. This is a tragedy for the Israelis, and you cannot blame the Palestinians for that. They're nothing to do with that. The fact that we're in the territories, I don't want to go into that story, because that's costing us money, but I'm not going to grumble about that, because we know that, and that's part of the thing I'm against. But it happens, and it's there. But what's even happening in our own economy, the Israeli people accept everything. Well, those days are over. In the early days, we had nothing here. There were no hungry children. I swear to you, in Mitun, and before that in Sena, I don't know children that went to bed hungry. There were no people out there snoring for hungry children. So what's wrong in this country? And I can't change it, I'm too old.
Oh, don't
Nobody
say that.
listens to me.
Don't say that. We started very well. Why do you want to ruin my...
No, but so I hope other people are going to do it.
Number 5 out of 100 people that made a lot of, how do you call it, ashpa? Influence. A lot of influence to the Israeli society. What do you wish us for the next 100 years?
Oh, well, I wish for my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, I wish there'll be peace here, that the Palestinians will wake up to the fact that they have to make an effort, and our people will make up to the fact that they're not going away, the same as we're not going away. Therefore, we have to find a way to live on this land which belongs to the three faiths that we should really be proud of. We should be, even if we were like the Vatican, like a Disneyland, so what? But here, it's a miracle to live here. It's the most wonderful place physically to live in the whole world, in my opinion.
Where is this plaque? It's stolen.
We've done it. What have we lost?
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
What?
Where is it? Where is
Oh,
it?
no, we don't want that again.
Well,
No, it embarrasses me.
now you know at least some information about this plaque. That how do you call this? המגן, איך אומרים באנגלית?
Plaque.
Shield.
Plaque's good.
The plaque, shield, whatever. Now you know. You can't beat this woman. The fact that she's saying that she's getting old is just to get us away from this interview, because she's quite embarrassed. Zelda Harris, I wish you all the
Thank you,
best.
darling. I'm flattered to be interviewed. You have interviewed all the presidents and me. תודה רבה, ממש תודה רבה. תודה רבה לכולם. אני רוצה שמישהו שלא דיבר עם נטלי, ויש מה להגיד על אחד הדברים, או יותר מאחד הדברים שדיברנו עליהם. נורית, אני לא יודעת, דיברתי איתה?